Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Revenue Growth Help Desk. I'm Matt Shares, the CEO of SBI, and I am pleased to welcome a very special guest, Deb Walton, who's joining us from the other side of the country. So while I'm in Arizona, she's on the East Coast. So Deb, great to see you, and why don't you introduce yourself and Refinitv to the audience?
Hey Matt, great to see you. Hello everyone, I'm Deborah Walton. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Refinitv. We are a $6 billion information company selling into the financial services space globally. I'm responsible for about 2,800 sales and account management people operating in 150 offices around the globe. Happy to be here today.
So Deb, and I was so pleased that you agreed to share some of your insight. And as you know, we've got a pretty dynamic modality with questions that come in every single week from all our different listening and research that we do. And for the audience, for the viewers and the listeners, what Deb and I are going to talk about is this construct around business continuity, kind of business right now. We're sort of 2 months into a COVID environment. Then we're going to talk a little bit about digital and digital transformation and acceleration and what that means not only for your sales model, but also for your people. And so we're going to spend about 15 minutes on that. So I guess as a way of getting started, maybe talk a little bit about, and you and I got a chance to catch up a couple weeks ago, relative to this construct of business continuity. And I guess a sales force of your size and scope and scale, global, who you call on, and how essential what it is that you do. How has the team responded, and I guess how are clients and customers responding in this construct right now?
Yeah, it's first of all, it is an absolutely incredibly challenging time, I think, for anyone that's leading any organization today, and leading a sales organization obviously has its own dimension of challenges. You know, first of all, probably to understand who we sell to, we're providing the information, the workflow, and the analytics that literally powers the world's financial markets. So the people that we're selling to, they were plunged into an incredible crisis in terms of how they kept financial markets operating. So a lot of our customers in the early days of moving into lockdown mode, their focus 100% was on maintaining their own business continuity for their own traders, their researchers, bankers, and so forth. So our customers were plunged, you know, quite a bit into crisis mode, as you can imagine. So the beginning for us was, first of all, how do we get our own sales and account management team really set up well in a remote working mode, and then how do we quickly respond to helping our customers make sure that all of their systems are up. So, you know, we quickly took, you know, a 5-pillar operating model for, you know, our sales organization around management of the team, customer engagement, management of the pipeline, management of opportunities, and sales effectiveness, and really took that playbook and said, how do we rewrite that playbook literally in 2 days to operate in this new COVID-19 framework? And first and foremost was making sure that all of our team was safe. We had a bit of an advance warning, a lot of people in China, so we started operating in this mode in late January. So we had the ability to sort of get this right in one geography, and then that became a playbook that we could really take around the world. Italy came next, where you know, we had 60 people really put into a lockdown mode in Italy, and then of course it rapidly rolled across the rest of the world. So the first priority was, you know, getting all of our people to be safe. I think from a leadership perspective, you know, we all had to find our own unique and new blend of head and heart to sales productivity, but while also bringing, you know, that incredible necessary lens of humanity, where so many of our people all of a sudden, you know, had to maintain, you know, productivity in a sales environment, had to look after customers, that had to homeschool kids, you know, had to take care of, in some situations, you know, family members that, you know, were perhaps being stricken by the virus. So an incredible new reservoir of leadership skills that really had to come to bear. The second pillar, which was really around customer engagement, it was all focused on how do we make sure that our customers are getting what they need from us. We literally permissioned thousands and thousands of free accesses to online tools to get our customers up and running. No charge. We were quick to respond, and I can tell you that the feedback from customers has been absolutely extraordinary. And I truly believe that what you do for your clients in these situations, especially when your systems are mission critical, it will stand dead over the long term. And I think just now, probably in the last few weeks, we've been able to really start to turn our attention, into more of a selling mode.
So Deb, what I find such a thoughtful answer, what I find so interesting about what you were able to do is with the scope and size of your job, the number of people that you're responsible for. I mean, you lead one of the largest sales forces in the world. It's easy for me to say that with the number of sellers, is that you took a 5-step framework that you laid out, right? The audience is looking at one that we've built based on feedback and whatnot. It doesn't even matter if it's 5 steps or 9 steps or 3. What matters is you have an operating model as a team that people follow because you created clarity and certainty for the team. Yeah. And you had this overarching principle, which your words, not mine, around business continuity. So I guess relative to the last couple of months, as you think about business continuity and the shifts you've made in the 5 steps, and for those that are watching and listening, if you think about the left side of the slide around revenue protection, think about that as some of the continuity elements Deb spoke about, deals that were late stage in the pipeline, connecting to the community, understanding the forecast. Deb, what was the emotional narrative of the sales force then, kind of mid-March? And then what's the emotional narrative mindset as we head into, American Memorial Day weekend now? Because a couple of months feels like a year, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is, again, I think a great challenge of leadership. I think everybody's going through the same kinds of emotions, but everybody's going through them at different times. And so making sure that you can try to be attuned to, someone that you may be interacting with who happens to be in one of those emotional lows at this point in time requires an incredible amount of empathy, I think. And there is there's no system or a process that can really, I think, take the place of genuine empathetic, caring leadership. I would say, first of all, the framework that we put in place was a framework that we really allowed, every frontline manager to be able to make their own. And I think that's what allows you to scale this kind of operation in such an incredibly quick way. We rolled out the framework and literally in the first 2 weeks, we did deep dives with every one of our 17 market leaders. And just to give you a sense of that, a market for us would be something like the Pacific region. So within the first 2 weeks, we got the entire Pacific regional leadership team on a video call. Thank goodness for video collaboration tools that we've all been plunged into, but with our global leadership team, and had them play back, what their playbook was with the nuances of their market. So it enabled us to scale, be very, globally structured, but very locally focused and very relevant right down to a team level, which enabled us to move very, very quickly. Look, you talked about what is the emotional mindset that I think that I see our team going through. In the beginning, I think for everybody, this was one of fear, individual level. I think from a leadership perspective, it was a big question. Can we trust our teams to be productive in this totally, remote mode? I would say the majority of leaders before this would have said, I'm not sure I trust my team to be productive in a completely remote working mode. I think we then moved into an environment where, as individuals, we kind of all said, wow, this is really good. No more, 90-minute commutes. I can zip downstairs between video calls, throw a load of laundry in, give, beat the kids around the ears and I can do this. I think the challenge we're facing now, as we read the news and we hear about the workplace of the future, we hear about second wave, just a few conversations that I've had in the last 24 hours, I think we're all starting to scratch our head and saying, is this really sustainable over the long haul, this lack of real, human touch? And is it sustainable to keep a sales business going, especially, without the opportunity to have those face-to-face interactions with clients that you need really to sort of set the beginnings of a relationship? And I think we're there at that's the big question right now.
So that's a good segue, Deb. So I think, takeaway number one, business continuity started with empathy, and then a framework that allowed global sensitivity and local sensitivity and local customization, but still gave you global scale. So big takeaway for those watching and listening that run large enterprise organizations. So then I guess my next question would be, so everybody has been forced into much more of a digital multimodal approach. And I know that you were continuing, and I think every leader was thinking about, what's the impact of digital in my business? Yeah. Specific around go-to-market, Deb, can you maybe talk a little bit about forward-looking? Yeah. And maybe just give the audience some advice, because I look at you and I say you're well ahead of most. So talk just a little bit about digital strategy and digital acceleration for you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think, let's look at it from the perspective of pre-sale and post-sale and digital. And then also contextually think about the market that we serve, financial professionals. It's a hugely face-to-face business, particularly in the post-sale environment. Our end users and our customers who are wealth advisors and traders, when we sell them something, they expect a human to turn up and sort of lean over their shoulder and show them how to use the product. And they expect someone to turn up and be there, 3 or 4 times a week on call, if they have a question with, some of their, what they want to know about the data or the workflow or whatever it might happen to be. And many of our customers equate that face-to-face service, with a measure or the propensity of that face-to-face service as a measure of quality. We were in the middle when the pandemic struck of putting the plans in place to do a 12,500 user deployment of some of our tools throughout 265 offices of one of our clients. And that was to be heavily reliant on our people turning up to those 265 locations in person. And then we literally pivoted in a couple of days to turn that into a completely virtual rollout. And it's incredible how successful it's been. And this is with an audience of end users that never would have been open to that kind of digital engagement. So frankly, I think that, even ourselves, we rolled out a collaboration platform probably a year ago, a video collaboration platform. None of us turned the video on. Now we can't imagine living without it. And we've seen our clients go through this same, kind of progression. So we're really going to now accelerate and move as much of our engagement post-sale into that on-demand, access to an expert anytime, which in reality gives a way, way, way better experience for the client whenever they want access to someone, as opposed to waiting for someone to show up on Thursday between 3 and 5 for, physical education. So I think breaking down that resistance and changing the cultural expectation is something we want to continue to drive. On the pre-sales side, we've been making, massively great use of digital sales assets. We've been doing a lot of webinars. Yeah. We've grounded them in things that are very, very, very focused on. We built a COVID-19 macroeconomic application. We had 1,700 people dial in for, 3 webinars that we ran. We We generated 560 leads from that webinar. We're finding that our clients or prospects are more accessible through LinkedIn now than they ever were before. We're finding that prospects are more inclined to actually show up for a webinar than they did before. So we're really kind of pushing the gas pedal on that. And then the last thing that I would say, which is to me a phenomenal breakthrough, our onboarding of new salespeople was traditionally really grounded in a very physical boot camp like model. And we always struggled with how to do it globally and how to do it economically, which meant we probably only ran a boot camp once every 4 months. So you had people coming on board waiting a long time to do a boot camp. We had a boot camp scheduled the first week of COVID-19. We rapidly turned that into a virtual, and now we've taken the feedback, and the second week in June, we will start our first 8-week cohort of a fully virtual sales onboarding program, and we will never go back to what feels now like a very old-fashioned fly everybody into New York to be on. Tremendously for us, we see a huge amount of upside in the acceleration that we've put on our digital sales and support capabilities. You know, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention, and that's certainly been the case for us.
Well, those are 3 fantastic use cases, and I think this is why you're the perfect guest to talk about the sustainability of distributed and digital. So I think, Deb, my last question would be, you think about the customer or client experience and the customer value chain. It seems to me like you have actually untaught your customers and retaught them in a much more cost-effective modality that also has better levels of engagement.
Yeah,
kind of an always-on modality where you've got better service, better experience, lower cost, and it's frictionless. And I know you were summarizing, but do you have a recommendation for others as they think about customer value chain? Because I think one of the big hesitancies with digital is, what do our customers want and how do we map the experience?
look, I think there is, my experience certainly in our business is there is a tendency to over index, the face-to-face sales experience with, a high value client, and to think of the long tail or the low value that you push into a digital channel. I have always thought that was a very flawed view. I use a couple of examples. My own wealth advisor, I've never, ever met them in person. And, if they kind of called me up and said, hey, Deb, I want to come over and spend an hour with you, I go, you know what, can't we just do a call or a video conference? And, my travel agent, I happen to spend, travel was my passion personally.
Yeah.
Not sure what's going to be for the next year or so, but, I would consider myself a very high value client for a travel agent. My travel agent happens to be based in Australia. Again, never met them, but do everything online and everything digitally. And, I think so the first big hurdle is getting over this sort of over-indexing of face-to-face to high-end clients. And look, I think the second is obviously changing our customers' behaviors, as you said before, Matt, and why we can't lose this opportunity. Because right now, where there was potentially resistance before, which would have been very difficult to break through, those barriers have fallen out of necessity. So we have a tremendous opportunity to really prove to a client that they can get used to a new way of interaction. I would urge everybody to look for opportunities to take advantage of the environment that we're in, to spin up pilots in different areas and really to start to experiment and innovate. And I think, everyone will be as surprised. I'm sure many people are already doing that, but be as surprised as as we've been as to how rapidly we've really re-engineered a lot of our processes. I think it's true. There's something about this environment right now that I've heard from everybody. It feels like everything's speeded up.
Oh yeah.
I don't know whether it's what it is. I mean, I think that's our challenge for most people. We're all saying, you know what, people are going to burn out. We've got to slow things down. But there's a momentum right now that I think, you know, if you've been holding off on that opportunity to seize the moment and drive a real step change in engagement and push to digital, there's never been a better time to do it than now.
You know, Deb, it's fascinating, and I know we have to wrap the show. It's so funny you talk about a step change, or another term we heard a couple weeks ago was a forcing function, right? Where, you know, I run a consulting business, right? Strategy business, where people on site, they get on planes on Monday and they're on client site. Our business is remote, and clients that are very discerning, right, are saying, actually, this works. So even when you can travel, don't worry about it. I only need to see you 20% as much. And my employee experience is actually higher now because what's the grind of consulting? Travel. So I'm nodding and smiling because I've seen benefits relative to that. So I guess if I would summarize, and Deb, thank you so much for joining and sharing the insight. I guess for those leaving here with a call to action, number one, thinking about defining business continuity in the right time dimension. Deb talked about, you know, initially it was a couple weeks, and then it's sort of in that 90-day tranche. Number two, think about that, how your employees are feeling and the step change that they've had. But relative to that is, what's your framework? So for all of you that are listening and watching, if you don't have one that you all are operating with, take Deb's lead, have that, and distribute that through your global leaders and allow them to customize. And then number three, the digital acceleration and imagination, teaching your customers what you can and can't do, and coming up with innovative ways to not only improve customer experience, but manage your cost structure. And Deb, you're leading from the front. So on behalf of the audience and obviously the SBI community, thank you so much, and cheers to you and the Refinitv team.
Thank you, Matt, and thanks as always for your sage guidance and wisdom. And stay well, be safe, and you know, save those air miles.
Yeah, well, good counsel. All right, everybody, we'll see you along the way. Talk to you soon.